Good morning, students. So yesterday, last class we discussed about pollination. So pollination is nothing but transfer of pollen grain from anther to stigma of either same flower is called autogamy. Transfer of pollen grain from anther to stigma of another flower present in same plant, that is pollination between two flowers of same plant, it is called geitonogamy. Transfer of pollen grain from anther to stigma of another flower present in different plant. So here also pollination between two flowers of two plants, that is xenogamy. So as the pollination successful by certain agents, either biotic agents or abiotic agents. The abiotic agents like wind and water, the biotic agents like animals. As most of the flowers in which pollination by wind, that is what we are called anemophily. The water pollination, that is pollination by water, it is called hydrophily. And pollination by animals, that is zoophily, as we discussed last. So based on animals, we also discussed the different types of pollination, that is ornithophily, chiropterophily, entomophily, myrmecophily, malacophily, like different types of pollination. Already we discussed. So today we discussed just what are the characteristic features of wind pollinated flowers, that is anemophilic flowers. Anemophilic flowers, that is pollination by wind. So here, in which the pollen grains, what the anemophilic flowers are, wind pollinated flowers, those pollen grains are very lightweight, less weight. Why they are less weight means the pollen grains carried by wind current, that is the wind current carried the pollen grains as it is less weight, and those are non-sticky nature. It is nothing but the pollen grains which are dried nature. When they are dried, they are non-sticky. If they are wet condition means they are sticky. So but here the wind carried the pollen grains. The pollen grains are non-sticky and even dried nature. Those are not wet. So as these dried nature pollen grains, they produce more pollen grains. Produce more pollen grains. So even because at the time of wind carried the pollen grains, most of the pollen may be waste. Maybe they are not compulsory reach the stigmatic surface. So only certain amount of pollen grains are, that is reach the, that is stigmatic surface of a flower or the pistil. Hence they produce more pollen grains also. That is the first character. The pollen grains are lightweight, non-sticky and dry, and the pollen grains are that flowers produce more pollen grains. Second one, in that flowers there is presence of well exposed stamens. Well exposed stamens. That is a flower, the flower which exposed, that is the stamens are exhibit more. Why they are well exposed stamens? That is, the stamens are also large. That is, large stamens and even well exposed stamens. Why means to disperse them, or to easy dispersal. To easy dispersal. At the time of dispersing, the wind carried the pollen grains, those which are less white, hence easy to disperse them. Even those when the stamen is present little bit above the flower, that is large stamen, even the large anther while compared. So while presence of these characters which helps to easy dispersed nature. Easy dispersed nature. So another one is the flowers are nectarless. As we know that nectar is a fluid, is a sweet fluid which is present in only entomophyllous flowers. While these wind pollinated flowers they are not produce any nectar. So hence the flowers are nectarless. As the stigma is feathery. Stigma is feathery. It is nothing but little bit like why the feathery stigma means to easy trap the airborne pollen grains. Airborne pollen grains. So because the pollen grains which are less weight, which brought by wind, that is wind current carry the pollen grain. The wind blowed in different directions, during which to trap the pollen grain, that is easy to trap the pollen grain, that is easy to trap the airborne pollen grain, there is presence of feathery stigma, and even the stigma is little bit sticky nature, that is gummy nature. So that is the characteristic feature of a wind pollinated flowers. Wind pollinated flowers. After the ovary of wind pollinated flower which contain the single ovule, that is single ovule. Each ovary contains only one ovule. So if the ovary contains many ovules, it is little bit, the flower is small, then the flower is big. Jasti idre doddagirutte. So because the flowers are small. These wind pollinated flowers are usually small. While the small flowers in which the ovary contain a single ovule. So if sometimes the flowers are small means those wind pollinated flowers in which the plant contain numerous flowers, number of flowers, jasti flowers irutte. Those at the time of presence of more flowers, the numerous flowers combine together to form an inflorescence. to form inflorescence. So the number of small flowers, that is numerous small flowers which combine together to form inflorescence. So these are important characteristic features of a wind pollinated flowers. Students, once again we discussed, that is, the flowers are small, even they produce those smaller flowers which produce the pollen grains are more, that is more pollen grains, all the pollen grains which are lightweight, less weight, because of the wind is easily carried, and those pollen grains are dry nature and non-sticky nature. Secondly, those smaller flowers even they consist large stamens. These large stamens which exposed more, that is well exposed stamens and large stamens. Those flowers are nectarless, means nectar is absent. The sweet fluid is absent in such flowers. So as presence of that is feathery or gummy stigma present here, that is as you see in maize plant. So either unisexually, so here most of the flowers are unisexual flowers. So means these unisexual flowers which present either different location of a same plant. For example, when you take a maize plant, the male flower which is present at the top, and that is female flower, that is corm. It consists a number of stigmatic surfaces here. Here, the male flower, the female flower, which are present in the same plant. Here, the stigma is, that is the feathery stigma. So, ಗಾಳಿ ರಿಲೀಸ್ ಆಗ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ pollen grains to trap easily attract ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿಕ್ಕೆ. ಫೆದರಿನೂ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಅಂಡ್ ಗಮಿ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ವೆಟ್ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ಸ್ ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ. ಏಕೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಈಸಿಯಾಗಿ ಪೋಲನ್ ಗ್ರೈನ್ ಅಂಟ್ಕೊಂಡ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಅದು ಪೋಲನ್ ಗ್ರೈನ್ ಬಂದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಅಂಟ್ಕೊಂಡ್ಬಿಡ್ಬೇಕು. ಸೊ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ there is presence of stigmatic surface is little bit gummy and even feathery. ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ broad ಅಗಲ ಇದೆ. So that each ovary of a flower which consists a single ovule. A single ovule present in each ovary, and the flowers are very small. But those number of small flowers which combine together, which stacked, present on a floral axis, what we are called as inflorescence. Inflorescence, it is nothing but a group of flowers which present on floral axis are peduncle. So as maybe that is unisexual flowers present in different plant or same plant. So these are, that is wind pollinated flowers characters. So next, so the characteristic features of water pollinated flowers, which are called as hydrophilic flowers. The hydrophilic flowers are nothing but the pollination carried by a medium called a water an aquatic medium. So here, most of the plants, that is aquatic plants. So here, those aquatic plants, that is plants are dioecious. Dioecious are nothing but unisexual. Dioecious are unisexual. Both male and female flowers which present in different plant, or even the flowers are little bit larger. The flowers are even large, but maybe female flowers remain submerged, or spring-like pedicel. There is presence of spring-like pedicel. So spring-like pedicel, it is nothing but, for example, it is a plant which is located in the water condition. There is presence of it is the flower, it is the stalk, that is stalk called, that is pedicel. So these pedicel is spring-like manner, because sometimes while the length of water is decreased or increased, it is little bit the spring nature, it helps to movement upward and downward. So on the male flowers are present at floating condition. So that is nothing but the male flowers which are present on the water surface. May level there. So at the time of these male flowers release more pollen rays. That is nothing but, more is nothing but, so maybe a number of that is female gametes is double or little bit more. So as these pollen rays are, so release more pollen rays. Pollen rays are long and ribbon-like even. So because the female flower which is remaining submerged condition, these pollen which move towards the female gamete or female flower. So here the pollen rays are carried by water current. So here the plants are either, most of them are dioecious unisexual flowers. It is nothing but male and female sexual pod, that is male reproductive pod, that is androecium present in separate flower. Female reproductive pod, that is gynoecium present in separate flower. But even those flowers present in the same plant also. That is, plants are dioecious. Flowers are little bit larger, and maybe male flower which is present in the floating condition, the female flower is also able, because of it is having the spring-like pedicel, it is floating. If it is not floating, it remains submerged condition. The female flower present in the water condition, that is the submerged condition. And even the pollen grains are reached towards the female gamete or towards the female flower. So as the plants, or that is what the male flower which released little bit more pollen grains because of water current carried the pollen grains, all pollens are not reached towards the gynoecium part, that is the pistil, that is the stigmatic surface. So even the pollen are little bit larger, that is long and ribbon-like pollen grains, which are also present in aquatic plants, that is like in Vallisneria and Hydrilla. Vallisneria and Hydrilla, those are, that is water pollinated, that is aquatic plants and water pollinated flowers present in those plants. So these are the characteristic features of, that is wind pollinated flowers, water pollinated flowers, that is hydrophilic flowers. So next, characteristic of insect pollinated flowers, that is entomophilic flowers. Entomophilic flowers. What is entomophily? Pollination by insect. Entomophily is nothing but pollination by insects. Such flowers are called as entomophilic flowers, where the entomophily, that is the insect helps to pollination, the insect is carried the pollen grain. At the time of insect, it visits the flower to suck the nectar. So during which the pollen grains of the flower which attach the legs of insect. Meanwhile, the same insect which visit another flower to suck the nectar. What are the pollen grains present on the legs? Maybe they are released, they are attached to the stigmatic surface. So as that is entomophily, in which the pollen are carried by an insect. So what are the characteristic features of these flowers, that is entomophilic flowers? So majorly, while insect is visit to flower bees, even the flower is able to gain, that is the weight of insect. At the time of insect sitting on the flower which is able to weigh the weight of the entire insect, as that is the flowers are large. So if the flowers are large, the flower is able to weigh the insect weight. So these flowers which are also colorful, very important. The flowers are large and the flowers are colorful nature. So the color of a flower which attract the insect. By the different colors, the insect is attracted. Then the insect is easily visit that flower. So that's why the flowers are large and colorful. So as The flowers are fragrant or scented. Fragrance and scented. That is nothing but at the time of glowing of a flower, the flower release more scents, smell. So while we come to fragrant flower or scented flower, which are the flowers which glowing night time, the flowers glowing night time which release more scent. So Brahma Kavla Kelirvo. So Ratri time Adatte. So at the time while it glowing, the flowers produce, means the flower release more scent, more smell. By that smell, most of the insects which meet or which that is visit the flower. So like the most of the insect pollinated flowers are which are very, very fragrant. After flowers contain rich in nectar. So because a insect which visit the flower to suck the nectar, as at the time the insect is also easily attracted by the colors nature. The insect is also attracted by fragrance, during which automatically what the insect is suck the nectar due to presence of nectar in that flower. So as the flowers are very rich in nectar content. And maybe not all flowers are larger. Some of the flowers, so means if flowers are small, if maybe flowers are small, numerous flowers stack into inflorescence. So means here the flowers are large commonly. If maybe the flowers are small, the number of flowers which are combined together to form a inflorescence nature. So here, while due to larger flowers, they easily weighed, but smaller flowers are not able to weigh such a insect weight, during which the insect which are present on the sit on the inflorescence to get to suck that is the what nectar. Certain flowers produce that is foul odor. That is bad smell. So like here beetles which attract to foul odor. Even flies are attracted to bad smell or foul odor, during which the insect it visit to flower by attract the smell or foul odor. So as that is these are little bit characteristic features of insect pollinated flowers. The flowers are large and colorful. Insects are attracted by colors. The insects are attracted by even fragrance or more scented or that is good smell or even bad smell. the flowers which produce nectar. That is, rich nectar is produced. If the flowers are small, the number of flowers which are combined together to form, that is the inflorescence. So during what yesterday we are discussed, that is the floral rewards. Floral rewards. That is, what are the two floral rewards? That is pollen grain and that is nectar. While the animal, that is the insect, visit to flower to get the nectar. Along the nectar, even there is presence of pollen grains in that. What that honey, which consists more pollen grains. These pollen grains are also rich, nutritious. So the second floral reward, that is, it provides space for laying eggs. So motte idlikku jaga kodutte. Motte idlikku jaga kodutte one flower. Like these two are, that is floral rewards get by these animal, as we discussed in the characteristic features of and that is entomophilous flowers. So it is the entomophilous flowers characters. Next, the pollination, a transfer of pollen grain from anther to stigma. Not all flowers or all plants are self-pollinated. All flowers are self-pollinated. But even certain flowers are cross-pollinated. So what we have discussed, the different characters of wind-pollinated, water-pollinated, that is entomophilic characters. So like sometimes, that is outbreeding devices it is nothing but a device which prevent self-pollination. Outbreeding device is nothing but the device which prevent self-pollination and to promote cross-pollination. To promote cross-pollination. So those devices what we are called as outbreeding devices. So certain flowers which need must-and-should cross-pollination. Cross-pollination is big. Anta only flower self-pollination, that is autogamy is not occurred. Why the autogamy is not occurred in such a flowers? Why they need self-pollination? That is, why they need cross-pollination? Self-pollination is not occurred. Certain devices which are present in such flowers, those modifications present in that flower which prevent must and should, that is self-pollination. That's why they need, that is the cross-pollination. What type of modifications? What type of devices which are present in such a flower? So like example, first one, dichogamy. So dichogamy is nothing but maturation of androecium and gynoecium in different types. That is nothing but maturation of androecium and gynoecium. Maturation of androecium and gynoecium in different types. So here, if androecium matured, the gynoecium is not matured, during which they need cross-pollination, they need pollen rise, they need gynoecium of another flower. So that's why they prevent self-pollination, they promote cross-pollination. If sometime gynoecium is matured before androecium, so here there are two types, that is in which protandry, protoandry, that is androecium matures before gynoecium. Protandry is nothing but androecium matured before gynoecium. The gynoecium is not mature, but androecium is matured, during which the flower what they released, that is pollen rise, which fall on another. So the androecium release the pollen rise which fall on immature gynoecium, those pollen rise which does not germinate. The pollen rise does not produce pollen tube as it required, that is it required the cross pollination. So another one is protogyny. Proto is nothing but first, gynoecium. Here proto is nothing but first and androecium. Here gynoecium matures before androecium. Gynoecium is first matured, but androecium is not matured. These gynoecium require pollen rise of another flower. So here, in both conditions, the autogamy or self-pollination is not occurred. So because of protogyny is a outbreeding device, protandry is outbreeding device, protogyny is outbreeding device, like that is the dichogamy. So dichogamy is nothing but maturation of gynoecium and androecium, different type, two different types. So second device, it is self-incompatibility. Self-incompatibility. Self-incompatibility, it is nothing but pollen rise of same flower which failure to germinate on stigma of flower. That is pollen rise of same flower, that is that flower failure to germinate. Germination agute failure agute. Such condition, what we are called as self-incompatibility. It is also called as self-infertility. Self-incompatibility or self-sterility. It is also called as self-sterility. Self-sterility. Sterile nature. The pollen grains are sterile, which are not able to germinate on the stigma of same flower. That condition, what we are called as, that is self-incompatibility. Self-incompatibility. So, as dichogamy, self-incompatibility or self-sterility, both are outbreeding devices. which promote cross-pollination, which prevent self-pollination. So as the next, that is diclinine or unisexual, that is unisexuality, and even it is called as diocy. Diclinine or unisexuality or diocy. So here the plant produce flowers contain either pistil or stamen. So it is nothing but if the flowers produced pistil, that is what we are called as pistillate flower. Pistillate flower, that is nothing but flower bearing only a pistil, or otherwise staminate flower. Staminate flower. So here that flower contain only male reproductive part, that is stamen. So if such flowers which must and should they required, that is cross pollination. If the bisexual flowers, they no need of cross pollination. If the flower contain, that is either pistil or stamen, ಯಾವುದಾದ್ರೂ ಒಂದಿದ್ದರೆ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು gamete ಬೇಕು. So in this condition, must and should they require, that is cross pollination, must and should they prevent, that is self pollination. So as dipogamy, self-sterility or self-incompatibility, diclinine or unisexuality or diocy, that is diocy is nothing but, for example, in papaya plant they produce only either male or female flowers, which must and should prevent the autogamy, and even deuterogamy. Deuterogamy is also absent there because the two flowers are not same plant. The two flowers are two different plants. So that's why that papaya plant exhibit that is xenogamy. So as another outbreeding devices like herpogamy, herpogamy is nothing but maybe of a small objects which grown on a stigmatic surface, those prevent the germination of that pollen grains. So such condition what we are called as herpogamy. So means certain small tumor-like structures which grown on stigma, those which does not promote that is self-pollination. Self-pollination we promote model. They are not encourage self-pollination. So which promote only, that is the cross-pollination. So another condition is nothing but heterostyling. Heterostyling. So here two different types of styles, like Here, stamen is short length, but style is long length. But in the condition like here, style is short length. It is short. It is long, more length. So in this both conditions, if the pollen grain is released, which does not move towards the stigmatic surface, the pollination is not occurred. So in this flower, the gynoecium in which style is smaller, but the length of stamen is little bit long. During such condition, at the time of dehiscence of anther, the released pollen grains, the wind currents carry away from these. As like the condition like heterostyle is also one of the outbreeding device which prevent the self-pollination, which encourage and which promote cross-pollination. So like dichogamy, self-incompatibility, unisexuality, dilinear, dioicy, hypogamy, heterostyle are important outbreeding devices which promote or which encourage cross-pollination and which prevent the self-pollination. So these are the 5 outbreeding devices. So next, pollen pistil interaction. Pollen pistil interaction. What is pollen? Already we discussed. Pollen grain is a small structure, a minute structure that is 25 to 50 micron sized structure. It is a male gametophyte. That pollen grain which produces 2 male gametes. That pollen released by anther of a stamen. It is a microspore. As what is pistil? The pistil is a part of a member of a unit of gynoecium. The gynoecium contains either single or more pistils. That pistil, which consists 3 important parts: stigma, style, ovary. Here, the pollen grain and the pistil interact with one another at the time of fertilization, because the pollen grain released from anther, which fall on stigmatic surface of pistil. So at the time of events which are occurred in between pollen pistil interaction, there are different interaction events. So those interaction events are, that is, first one is pollination. Second one is pollen germination. Pollen germination on stigmatic surface. Pollen germination on stigmatic surface. After pollen germinates, the pollen produce pollen tube. That pollen tube growth through the style. Whether the pollen tube emerged from a pollen grain which entered the stigmatic surface and it entered style through the style which moved. The same pollen tube, that pollen tube enter into ovary or ovule. Enter into ovule. The ovule located into ovary. So these four events which combine together to call pollen interactions. So all the above events together called that is pollen pistil interaction. Pollination, pollen germination on stigma, pollen tube growth through style, pollen tube entered into ovule. So these events which are occurred during pollen pistil interaction, all these events which together called that is pollen pistil interaction. So we discussed one by one these pollen pistil interactions. So the first one, as you know, that pollination, transfer of pollen grain, that is transfer of pollen grain from anther to stigma of a flower. This phenomenon what we are called as pollination. During pollination, the pollen grains which released from anther, if anther is dehiscence, the anther wall is break down to release more pollen grains. That pollen grains released from the anther and which reach the stigmatic surface. At the time of stigmatic surface, the stigmatic surface is wet condition. During wet condition, the attachment of pollen grain on stigmatic surface, that wet condition which helps to promote the pollen grain, that pollen is germinate. When the pollen is germinate, if the pollen germinate, if compatible pollen or self pollen. So here the stigmatic surface which is able to identify whether the pollen is compatible or incompatible. When compatible pollen grain is fall on stigmatic surface, during which the pollen is germinate on the stigma. For example, a pollen grain is fall here. If these pollen grain germinate on here, means on the stigmatic surface, this pollen is compatible. compatible. It is compatible. It is nothing but the pollen grain of its own flower or otherwise from another flower of same species. Got it? Compatible pollen, it is nothing but the pollen grain of its the same flower or another flower. Sometimes the compatible pollen is also not able to germinate because of certain chemical analysis of pollen grain and pistil is not matching, during which the stigmatic surface is reject that pollen grain. So as pollen pistil interaction is a dynamic process. In that dynamic process, these stigmatic surface, that is surface of stigma, which reject the pollen grain or which accept the pollen grain. When it is accept, if the pollen grain is compatible. If pollen grain compatible ಆದರೆ ಮಾತ್ರ stigmatic surface accept ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳುತ್ತೆ. That pollen grain is incompatible, this stigmatic surface is not accepted, it is rejected. So as students, so in that we discussed only the two events, these events which continued in next class. So next class we discussed these two events of that pollen interaction. Okay, thank you.